Uber has been accused of lobbying top Kremlin officials in an effort to secure its grip on the Russian market. That is according to findings of an investigation by leading international news outlets, citing evidence from over 120,000 leaked documents. The so-called Uber files reveal how the Silicon Valley company sought to encourage investment by hiring a political lobbyist with links to Russian oligarchs. Experts say that the move should have rung alarm bells and also risk breaching US anti-bribery laws. Well, we can bring in Dean Starkman now, Senior Editor at the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. Good evening to you. Thanks for being with us. Your group of journalists scoured Uber texts, emails, invoices, all sorts of documents, essentially. What were the main takeaways of what you managed to uncover?
The principal takeaway for me was the ease with which Uber was able to gain access to some of the most powerful democratically elected leaders on the face of the earth with using high-powered lobbyists from A-list people from the Obama administration and elsewhere. They had the ear of people that, and it shows the clear advantages that wealth essentially capital will have on the democratic process. And this was all while they were flagrantly either violating or ignoring local transportation and labor laws in a bid to basically crash into these markets.
Now, I think it's fair to say that for as long as Uber essentially has been around, there have been headlines and reports about the country. But it's interesting that your investigation also uncovered alleged stealth technology, stopping more essentially coming to light. Tell us more about that.
Right. We didn't discover their use of stealth technology, but we did discover that it was used far more extensively than had been previously reported. And there are particular technologies that I certainly hadn't heard about, including the kill switch, which is essentially a protocol that would allow people in local offices like Amsterdam and Paris, and for instance, to literally cut access to Uber data in the midst of police and authorities raids on their offices, essentially evading their obligations to cooperate with legitimate law enforcement investigations.
Now, you talk about access to political heavyweights. Who were some of those figures, and what were these lobbyists able to get them, in some cases, to do?
What was, again, striking for me was the preponderance of centrist and left centrist political figures from the Obama administration. David Plouffe and Jim Messina are really well-known names over here, who were deployed to gain access to some of the most important people in Europe, including Emmanuel Macron, with whom Uber developed a particularly intimate relationship. We show that in one instance, at least, Macron was able to or offered to intervene in a regulatory matter in Marseille, and it's clear that Uber had the ear and the sympathy of some of the most important people in Europe.
All right, Dean Starkman, Senior Editor at the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. Really great to have your insights, the results of this investigative effort. Thanks a lot. Well, the investigation has sent shockwaves across Europe, notably in France, as you just heard there, where President Emmanuel Macron is facing considerable criticism for his alleged involvement in Uber's lobbying campaign in the country. French newspaper Le Monde accuses the then economy minister of securing a, quote, secret deal with the transport firm. Opposition figures are now calling for a parliamentary inquiry into the document. So let's bring in our international correspondent in Paris now, Annelise Bourges. Annelise, to what extent is the French president implicated in this, and how big of a problem could it be for him?
Well, Emmanuel Macron is not being accused of anything illegal, at least technically speaking, but of questionable practices. And his team have been playing the whole thing down, saying the fact that he met with Uber executives or exchanged with them in view of seeing what kind of help the French government could put forward is by no means part of a secret deal with the company, only part of his job as economy minister. They have also been noting that the fact that these documents don't include anything that suggests Emmanuel Macron could have benefited personally from this relationship. Rather, they say that France has benefited as a country from the establishment, from the creation of Uber in France, in terms of the creation of jobs, but also the creation of more options for consumers. In terms of just how big of a problem this can be for the French president, we are now seeing a vote of no confidence here in the French parliament. A debate has been going on for the last few hours, and to be honest, the so-called Uber gate, which is how this investigation is being labelled here in France, has been virtually absent from the discussion, apart from a few mentions from a few MPs. The truth, Helena, is that there's no secret. Then Economy Minister Emmanuel Macron wanted to relax labour laws, that he supported the digital economy, the transformation of the French economy, and these tech startups. This, however, has been feeding the debate here in France. As you said, MPs suggesting they want an investigation, and in the corridors of the French parliament today, many of the MPs telling me that Emmanuel Macron placed US interests above France's interests, that he placed US companies above French workers. But at least for now, this doesn't seem to be the biggest problem Emmanuel Macron has to solve. Securing support for some of his ambitious reforms going forward seems to be the most pressing challenge for the French president right now.